Welcome to Messy Liberation, the podcast that dives deep into feminism, business, and personal growth. I'm Becky Mollenkamp.
And I'm Taina Brown. Get ready for another messy conversation through the eyes of two intersectional feminist coaches.
Let's get messy.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
How's it going?
It's going all right. It's a little earlier than we normally record, so.
Yeah, I know. I can feel it too.
Yeah, me too.
I'm glad I'm not the only one. We have no agenda for today, so we'll see what this podcast becomes.
Mm-hmm.
But what's on your mind?
My dog.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
This may end up being a grief episode, huh?
Yeah. Oh, actually, I was thinking, I was like, maybe we should have Nikki on the podcast at some point to talk about.
Might have been good for today.
Yeah.
Smith, the death doula, for people who don't know. So maybe we
Yeah.
can link to her. Yeah, because your wonderful dog that we thought might never die did finally, you had to put her down.
Yeah.
About a week ago now.
Yeah, we had to put her down about a week ago. She had pneumonia a couple months ago, which is like the sickest she'd been in a while. And so she was on antibiotics for like 5 or 6 weeks. Then a couple weeks ago, her health started to deteriorate. We thought maybe she had an infection, like a tooth infection or something. We took her to the vet, and turns out she was in kidney failure. The kindest thing to do was to put her down. She was 18 and a half.
I mean, that's old for a dog.
Yeah.
If only we could do, I've always been a big supporter of euthanasia and the fact that we don't give dignity in death for humans, or at least I know there are some states that do. I think Oregon, and I don't know if there's others. I think Oregon's one of the only, but
Yeah.
we can't have death with dignity in the U.S. for humans, but we do it for dogs. It's so bad to me because yes, you're right. The best, sometimes you get to that place where the kindest thing to do is to let them go. And my father-in-law died a week ago.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Well, I don't know what day it is. I'm so out of it because it's been such a long
Yeah.
week plus, but he died last Monday, as we're recording this, so 2 weeks when this comes out. And we just had all the ceremony stuff because of the 4th of July holiday. Everything got prolonged and pushed out. So it was 7 days to the visitation and 8 days until the funeral and burial. So I'm just a day off of that. And what I realized last night is when you go into caretaking mode for others, like it's so funny. It reminds me when my brother died, where I totally just tried to avoid my grief. And eventually it caught me. It took a while because I ran hard, but it did eventually catch me. And this feels similar in a way of like delaying my own grief, which I didn't know there would be much. But yeah, the last 12 hours or so have been really heavy for me. I'm feeling like I pushed pause to be there for my husband and for my son. And now I'm kind of feeling just the emotional weight of all of that, plus probably is around my father-in-law dying. For whatever reason I didn't expect, but the reason it reminds me of not to like make this about like saying my father-in-law was like a dog. The reason it reminds me of your dog is we also sort of, somebody lives long enough and through enough that you start to think, well, that SOB will never die. And yeah, I think what I realized last night was just this feeling of like, I think I've been in full on denial for a week because pushing pause again to help others and realizing also that I think there was just this part of me that's like, I don't know, he'll never go. And the same with your dog, like that dog's going to live forever. So anyway, I don't really want this episode to be super, super heavy and depressing for people, but that is where we're both at in a place.
It is where we're both at. Yeah.
Grief is more, that is part of life. And one of the things I told my son that I think is important for us to remember, like without grief, we don't have joy. Those are two sides of a coin. We experience joy because of our grief, because we know it can end, because it can be taken. And that's what allows us to be in joy, is that feeling of it going away. Because if you are in joy all the time, you don't actually appreciate it, don't even recognize it as joy, because you don't know what its opposite is. It's like happy and sad, or angry and calm. Like these are two sides of an emotional coin that rely on each other to exist, because our understanding of one only exists because of the other. And so as challenging as it is to be in grief, it is also like the part to try to remember is I have this feeling allows me to know what joy is.
Yeah.
There's beauty in that, even if it is hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm at the anger stage. And so I feel like I sent an email out to my email list yesterday just about just being so fucking angry. And I think anger is a part of the grief process, right? And I think the grief that I'm feeling about losing little Luna is triggered anger about everything.
Well, right. Because you can't parse out. That's something.
Yeah, you can't parse out what you're angry about.
Right. You can't be like, I'm just going to deal with this little fraction, this sliver of the anger about this specific thing. No, the anger is there and it brings all the anger forward. And you have a lot to be angry about right now.
Yeah.
Boy, do I feel that too.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm rereading Uses of Anger by Audre Lorde. And actually, I have a client, I put this in my email yesterday, but I have a client who is so comfortable with her anger. And I'm just like, I aspire to be like her so much because I feel like, especially as a woman, right? Like we're told not to be angry. It's not nice. It's not polite to be angry. Anger is something that you manage, not something that you experience, right? And so, and I'm also just like, I'm a bit of a head case in the sense that like I think about my feelings. I don't necessarily feel my feelings all the time.
Oh, friend, do I ever like I feel that when I think I feel that a lot. I do the same thing. My friend my bestie, who is a counselor, she does counseling work with children. Like she's not a saint because no one is, but her work is unbelievable. She works with children who are just in the most awful situations. But I called her as I was driving to be with my husband, who was with his dad when he died, was just talking to her about it. And she was like, she's like, you would be a therapist dream client. And I'm like, why? She's like, because you're so in your head that like you think about the thing before you even get to the thing. And like, because I was, I'm sitting here talking to her through it and I'm giving myself all the answers, right? Mm-hmm. Part of the problem with that, though, is because I'm thinking 10 steps ahead. I'm thinking about the way I should be feeling or how to manage the feeling. Like you, I don't think I actually sit in the feeling because I'm so in my head thinking about the feelings and managing the feelings and talking through the feelings and thinking about what's next in the process that I don't actually just allow the feelings, the somatic experience, embodied experience of feelings.
Yeah. So like when I was writing the email about being angry, I was like, I still feel like I need to take some time to like feel this. And just like think about, okay, where in my body do I feel this anger and how do I like release that energy? Wow. And so put on some dance music to just kind of, like move my body a little bit to get some of that energy out. But I think the thing that I'm just kind of sitting with grief, lately is that like, because also my wife and we both have family members whose health is like rapidly declining. So we're contending with that potential loss. We're anticipating that loss, right? Which is a different kind of grief, right?
For
that
sure.
You experience. And I've been on this like journey for the past year since my medical trauma last year about like how to feel more embodied. And what that looks like and what it means to be like just a radically embodied person, how that shows up in my coaching and in my business. And the bottom line is like denying yourself the anger, the feeling of the anger, right? Denying myself that feeling like, disconnects me from my body. Mm-hmm. And so in order to really feel embodied, like I really need to lean into those feelings. And like it feels unsafe, because again, anger is a thing that as a woman, as a person in this society, we're told is dangerous, right? It's not something to really feel. It's something to just kind of put on the shelf and leave there.
It's interesting. I'm curious too. This is one of those places where I used to always say that like using women as a universal experience, which obviously I know, we don't do that. And like there, because of all these intersecting identities, there's not a universal woman experience because as a white woman, I have a different experience than a Black woman.
Mm-hmm.
Woman who recognizes they may be queer much earlier than other women have a different anyway. But I did say once about talking about women and the ways that we are conditioned to not feel anger and all that. And I had a Black woman once say to me, that you sound like a white woman as you're talking about some of these things because Black women often, and it's interesting, I'm just interested to hear your perspective and not your universal Black experience, but your Taina experience with what I'm about to share. But she was saying, Black women, many Black women anyway, have a different experience with some of these feelings with anger and other feelings because we're not, and these feelings of like caretaking and stuff, although it seems to be a little more universal culturally, it's just women are expected to caretake for others. But because white women often learn to be afraid of our anger for all of the reasons that you're talking about, or Black women, this woman was sharing in her experience anyway, that Black women don't always have that privilege, I guess, to shy away from their anger because their experience of it just existing in the world, right, is so anger inducing that like you almost have to learn how to be with anger. But I'm curious for you if that resonates at all, or you like your conditioning, of course, could be very different too. And that I'm curious if that's like, especially since you're reading Audre Lorde and her perspective on anger. I'm very curious what that.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I can definitely see that. And that has been a part of my experience. I think also another bigger part of my experience, I think, is growing up in a household where there was abuse and anger was the trigger for the abuse, right? And so that makes anger scary, right? And so there was like these two opposing experiences with anger, right? As I got older and started to make sense of the world around me, you know, as a teenager, as a young adult, as a 20-something, just constantly being angry because of coming to terms with the fact that like this world is like really fucked up, especially in the way that it treats often marginalized communities. And I remember one semester actually in college, and by the time I was finishing school, I was in my early 30s, but like there was one semester where I had a series of classes on the same day, and it was all like about the fucked up shit of the world, right? Like it was like feminist theory or Black feminisms, like women and gender studies from like an international perspective. And then it was like, I think it was like women and religion or something like that. And it was all on the same day from like morning, like my first class was at like 8 a.m. and my last class ended at like 7 p.m. And every week, like that was like the worst day of the week for me every single week that semester, because I was just in a rage the entire day. And so there was that experience, right, of just like coming into this like consciousness of how the world responds to me. But then there's like the early experiences of my childhood where like anger, like you're just like constantly walking on eggshells. Like when you live in a home where there's abuse, like you're just constantly walking on eggshells because you don't know. The anger has been so undealt with, so tamped down that it's just like this smoldering pit, and any little thing can trigger it. Like you said earlier, right? Like once you get angry about one thing, it kind of unleashes everything if you haven't like processed it and felt it. And so something as small as like getting angry over a spot of water on the floor, right? Like all of a sudden it unleashes like all this other anger, and you never know what the response to that anger is going to be. And so those two opposing experience or seemingly opposing experiences with anger have just kind of
informed who you are.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing I guess I should have said was it's not this particular Black woman aren't necessarily better adept at being with their anger, but it's being able to avoid anger in the way that white women we learn and often have this privilege to be able to avoid anger in many ways, where Black women maybe can't avoid that anger because existing is anger inducing. But there's this added challenge for Black women, I think, that white women can't understand, of this angry Black woman trope that's out there, right? So Black women can't avoid the anger, but have this additional word responsibility is not right, but feeling this self-responsibility,
expectation,
manage it so that they aren't perceived in this way that feeds into this really negative and harmful trope. Which I think must complicate in many ways that relationship with anger, where white women have this privilege to sort of often avoid anger and just use their privilege in a way to sort of not have to ever be with that feeling of anger. And then, you know, when they have it, if they do express it, are allowed, like, not that it's okay to be angry as a white woman, but when we have it, it's more like, oh, there you're being a Karen for a minute or whatever, which I love when the white women show up as if this is that's equivalent to the angry Black woman, right? Like, no, we're allowed these moments of you're just sort of like, oh, there she is. But then we get ourselves back into control and it's all okay. Forgiven. It's feeding into some larger thing that affects all white women. Whereas angry Black woman trope like affects everyone who's Black. So anyway, it's got to complicate things to make it
it does
a minefield of a feeling for you.
It reminds me of that James Baldwin quote. I'm gonna fucking butcher it, but it's basically, he says something like, you know, to be Black and to be conscious is to be angry all the time. And so people who aren't angry, like, I kind of question that. And, you know, it's interesting because, like, I remember towards the end of my time in the religious bubble, I started to realize that I had a lot of mistrust for a lot of the people there who didn't get angry about things. Because I was like, how? I don't trust you. Like, you're too happy all the
I think
time.
you
Like,
just leave it at how?
yeah. How are you
How do you
not
look around the world and
angry?
not be angry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're
Well, and that's the
either
privilege
like,
showing, right? Because there is that
yeah.
because white women and this like that's why I think that wellness space that's so filled with these toxic positive white women anger people or it like it's just the side eye that I think so many Black women give to those folks and why they can, and why inside of that space they can't understand. And I remember the whole mindset coaching space and why it never was right for me and why I don't use that title is because there is this like complete tunnel vision of the experience that I have as a white woman is the universal woman experience. Again, that's where that education that I received early on when I would be, and I still find myself doing it, where I start to talk about women and womanhood. And it's clearly through my white lens.
Yeah.
But it's like inside of that white woman wellness space, there is this belief that, hey, I think positive thoughts and look at my life. So why wouldn't that be okay for everyone? And it's your anger that's making you have the world around you feel so heavy, right? And there's just this lack of understanding that no, it's your privilege that's making it feel like you can just talk, positively talk yourself out of the world, the negative of the world. The Brooke Castillos, and I'm going to call that bitch out. I don't care, from the life coach school, because that was her whole thing is the model, as she calls it, which is just CFAR, which is just a CBT method of therapy, right? Cognitive behavioral therapy, the CBT method, which is just basically experiences are neutral.
Yeah.
And it's your thoughts that create the feelings, that create your actions, that create your results, CTFAR. And so it's what you think about the neutral experience is what creates your feeling of anger. So racism, this is where she got into trouble, rightfully so. Racism's neutral. It's just a thing that happens.
Oh my God. Are you serious?
Well, this is from 2020, George Floyd, her reckoning. I guess you haven't. Yeah, it was a whole thing. If you go back far enough, everyone, you can go listen to her very wildly popular podcast. By the way, Brooke Castillo, for all of her learning, has been found to have given a lot of money to Trump. She's MAGA, no surprise. But yes, it was this whole thing of like, because it had worked for her. It worked. She's a white woman with all the privilege. It worked for her. Like, oh, I'll just take like my feeling, because she started in the space of wanting to be skinny, right? That was her whole thing. It was like weight loss, because of course, because that's for white women so much of our experiences around being small. And so it started with helping women lose weight by understanding that like food is just neutral, right? Food's just neutral. Which, okay, food is very different than racism, but fine. But also, by the way, food's not neutral.
Yeah.
And anyway, nothing is fucking neutral. But she would say, like, it's just neutral. It's your thoughts that you're creating, like, around the food that's then making you feel a way about your relationship with food that then creates actions that have you overeating or whatever. And the result are your fat. Well, if you want to get skinny, because who wouldn't, right? Then we need to change the thought we have about food, right? Because we just need to understand, no, it's just neutral. It's the thing. It doesn't have to have any power over me, whatever. And if I start to think that, then I don't feel like desire for food. I don't feel all this love. So then I can take different actions and have different results. Well, she started to say the same things then in 2020 with the George Floyd incident and all of this, like the racial awakening of America. Lots of sarcasm there. Anyway, she started saying the same things about racism and got her into trouble, rightfully so. And that is that space, I think, that's out there where these white women, it's like, well, my experience with racism is pretty neutral.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't yours, Black woman, also be? If you just change the way you think about it, then you could be where I am.
Yeah.
So that's like the shit that's so infuriating, where it's like, no, our relationship with anger, our relationship with everything is influenced by with the identities we hold and the ways that we're perceived.
Yeah.
Including anger. That's one of them.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just went on a rant. And by the way, just for everyone, and you probably as well, but like my brain is so fucking fried after this last week of heaviness. So ramble, please understand that's because I don't know what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, mine is too. We used to sleep with Luna. And so it's been weird. Not having her on the bed.
Even though she only took up like a square inch of it because she was so tiny.
Yeah.
That is hard. That's so hard.
Yeah. She would sleep between us, because she was so little. She would get
you don't have kids.
easily.
Like, I understand that. I think sometimes people with children can get very like eye rolly about people who don't have kids and are treating their animals like kids. I get it. But also for 40 years of my life, didn't have kids, and my dogs and my animals, even my cats before that, like they were my kids. And those losses, Milo, RIP, my chihuahua, who lived to be 15, he was my, like, I really felt like he was my child. I felt like we had a relationship. And I know it, but I mean, they can't talk to you, but they do. They like, you have a real relationship with your animals. And yeah, I hate when people dismiss that as like with this eye rolling, like, well, if you had kids, you know, it's, you know, like
it's different. Yeah.
Relationship, but so is the relationship you have with your mom versus a, you know, cousin or whatever. And even within that, everyone has different relationships with different, like, we can't think there's a universal relationship with anything, right? And this is like going back to that like universality. So anyway, all that to say, it's a real loss, and I hate it when people diminish it as if it's not.
Yeah, it is a real loss. So we're getting her cremated, so we'll have her.
Are you what have you decided what you're going to do with them?
They're coming back to us in an urn.
Oh, you are getting one. Okay.
Yeah. So we'll see what the urn looks like. You know, I have to have
sometimes the ones that they said it's like almost like a box where you're like,
yeah. I'm sure we'll have to buy something that's a little prettier.
Maybe you two could go do pottery lessons, have your little ghost moment, and make.
I'm not patient enough for something like pottery.
No, because you're not going to get it right the first time. So then you gotta, it takes too long. Just go to the pottery store and buy one.
Yeah. So we did have family visit like right after though. Like, so we put her down, I think on Tuesday, and then we had family come in on Wednesday for a few days, which
helpful or not helpful, or I know right?
Both. Both. It was both, you know, it's yes and.
Yeah.
So I feel like it kind of delayed some of the grieving.
Yeah.
But then it was also kind of fun. So,
well, like I've been telling my kid through all of this with his grandpa dying, of like, because I think there's this, I don't feel like American culture knows how to deal with grief.
No, definitely not.
We're so bad at grief in this culture here in this country. And I see how other cultures deal with grief, and it's much more healing, I think, than, and again, I'm generalizing American culture because within American culture, there are certain groups,
there's subcultures
that do much better. But like on the whole, America doesn't deal well with grief. The very fact that we give 3 days of bereavement leave, and typically at most companies, that's only for a certain, like your like mom, dad, sibling. Actually, I don't even think siblings are often included. So like it's mom, dad, spouse, child, I think is general. Yeah. So grandparents, forget it. Doesn't matter how close you are.
Cousins, aunts, uncles, pets.
Often even siblings, because I think when my brother died, I don't think there was bereavement leave because it was adult siblings. Like that doesn't count or whatever. But anyway, so we really do poorly with grief here. And I was telling my son, it's okay if you want to go play. It's okay if you want to distract yourself and sit in the corner on your device and just not think. Like the idea that you're supposed to just sit in your grief and in 3 days be over it, right? Because that is sort of how it feels in America. It's like, okay, we've given you a few days now or a week, whatever. Like, and at most it's like you've had a week. Maybe if it was a child, like we'll give you a month. But then like your grief makes us uncomfortable is the feeling. Right. So we need you to stop that because it's making, I don't like to sit in my discomfort with your discomfort and I don't know how to be with you. So get back to normal. And I just think it's important for people to remember too, like sometimes you can play and like laugh. And I tried to tell him like, cause he would be like, yesterday, my husband said you have a good time because after the funeral, we went over to families and it started somber and then it turned into this sort of like fun. There was music playing and, you know, people laughing. They were playing, kids were playing games and swimming and he was like, well, it was sad. And he's like, but then it was fun. And we're like, yeah, that's that very idea of bittersweet is exactly right. Like it can be both. It's the both.
Yeah.
So only there sometimes can be distracting in a way that's helpful.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard because then you're talking about it and you're like, oh, I'm just sitting in this. But I almost think you have to have both of those experiences.
Yeah. I agree. It's not that one is better than the other. I think it's a matter of like understanding what you need moment to moment, right? Sometimes you need that distraction and sometimes as uncomfortable as it might be, you need to sit with it, you know? And so having the self-awareness to know what is the right course of action in that moment is really helpful. It's funny, like yesterday in the coaches circle, we had a community call.
Yeah, sorry. And I was obviously.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's totally fine. And we were just, you know, talking about the future resource library and like what it could look like. And we were talking about like having different like not tutorials, but like everyone's sharing their expertise basically. And as we said, Nikki, she's in the coaches circle. She's a death doula. So she works with people who are grieving a lot. She said something, I don't know if it was her or if it was somebody else, like grief is always in the room, like
sounds like a Jordan Maney thing to say too. That sounds like she's good with those kinds of lines. That's
yeah, like somebody's always grieving.
Yeah.
And the level of grief varies, right? Like we're grieving.
Well, right now we're all collectively grieving.
Yeah, like
America
just the world in general.
Right?
Yeah. Like there's all those people that got lost in the flood in Texas. There's what's going on in Palestine. There's bills being passed, cutting funding, for like healthcare for people and reproductive rights and trans rights. And there's so much to grieve. There's no shortage of things.
And I think it's also helpful to remember that I think, again, the way that America deals with grief generally is that we think grief is this one thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Deep sadness over the loss of someone very close to you, right? And again, we define that very narrowly here too, of like what you're allowed to be grieving. But grief, and I love the way my mom once told me, she's like, grief is just when you are dealing with something being different than you thought it would be. Right. So it is, I thought this person would be here and they're not. Yeah. That's grief. But it's also like divorce, even if you wanted the divorce.
Yeah.
Life looked this way. I thought my life was going to be this with this person. And now it's not. There's grief in that. There can be, and I've worked with clients on this, I'm sure you have too. There's grief in things that are happy.
Yeah.
Because it, like moving, you want to move. I want to go to this new place. But that doesn't mean that we don't also grieve the change. Yeah. We knew to be part of our identity or our existence. And so like grief is so much bigger of a feeling. We want to put it into this really tiny little box. Mm-hmm. We feel uncomfortable with it. So then we can be like, well, it's only this little thing, right? And you only experience it a small amount of time. But like you said, it's always in the room because we're always grieving something. There's always change is inevitable. And change brings with it grief. Always.
Yeah. I mean, I think about leaving a job, right? Like when you're like a job that you've wanted to leave forever, and then you finally get the courage or, and find something else or start your own business and you put in your notice and it feels amazing. But then like, there's also a sense of loss there.
Yeah, because you probably had some friends in the co-work, or like sometimes I grieve being in an office, just the like camaraderie when I'm sitting alone working. There are times where I have a little of that grief of like, like that. I kind of miss the water cooler moment, right? They were going out to lunch with a bunch of coworkers or things. And I don't in any world ever want to work in a corporate environment again, ever. Yet there is still some of that grief. And that's okay. Like we need to hold space for that. We need to do better at that, of allowing ourselves to say, there is some grief there. Because I think the reason that we make grief so scary is because we do put it in such a tiny box and then associate it only with the very worst things that happen in our life, right? The loss of a child, a partner, a parent, or, and when we make it into that big, giant, scary thing, then we're terrified to touch it. If we can understand, like, I'm interacting with grief all the time.
All the time.
I can be with, it makes it something we can be with without all that discomfort. And the same way anger, right?
Yeah.
Women, I'm interacting with anger all the time. Those moments when I get a little like frustrated, I call it like that's frustrating. If you look at the emotions wheel, we have like the core big feelings, right? Of like sad, happy, angry. In that anger, if you go out, like, it has shades of it. And frustration is a shade of anger. Just because we call it by another name doesn't mean it's not still rooted in anger. That frustration is still like, like I can, and if I could learn to be with that, I guess I would say, I can be with anger. I'm with anger all the time.
All the time.
I just call it something different or I minimize what it is because I'm so afraid of that same way. I'm terrified to touch anger because I've been made to believe I can't be with it. Right. Start to learn like, no, I'm interacting with it all the time. I'm interacting with it all the time. These are things that I experience all the time.
Yeah. It also makes it ambiguous. It also makes it ambiguous. Like, right, if we have such a narrow definition of these feelings, then when we feel them in a different way, we're like, whoa, what is that? I don't know what that is. And then it feels like really scary and stressful. And it's like, no, it's all like part of, like you said, it's a shade of that one feeling. And so
every person should, if you've never seen the feelings wheel or an emotions wheel, like we should all have them and honestly
and put it somewhere.
You should have to just carry it with you all the time and challenge each other to identify on that wheel what we're feeling. Because I'm sure we've talked about it here before, but I once had someone tell me that most people can only identify like 3 feelings or something. Like the number of feelings that most humans can actually name, or most Americans anyway, I think it was an American study, is very small. It's like happy, sad. I don't remember. Those are the big ones. Angry. Like, they know just those very core inside out one level of feelings, right? And maybe not even that many, because I think there's 5 characters in Inside Out. But that's it. That's all they can do. Because we don't understand feelings. We are made to be very heady in this culture and patriarchy. Everything about our brains is like exalted and everything about emotions is demonized. And so we're terrified of feelings. We don't know what they are. We can't identify them. And then again, like you said, because we make it these little like narrow things, it creates all of this ambiguity where when you try to get someone to say, like, what are you feeling? They can't even pinpoint it because they don't know, because we've never learned them. And it's not like we're creating all these emotionally unintelligent, emotionally stunted kind of humans that then what does that do for us as parents, as partners, right? No wonder we have such high divorce rates. And again, I'm pro-divorce. I'm not saying we shouldn't be divorced, but like, it's hard to be in couples when you can't communicate feelings and when you're not aware of feelings. It's hard to parent when you can't communicate feelings. We need to do better at this. Yeah, I don't know. We do. Inside Out 2 brought at least a few more feelings. So like I can see like there's some expansion there. I hope I would love to see them keep doing the Inside Out process like in her 20s and she's going to college and like like what's that like? And then when she has her kids and then when her parents are dying, I would love for that to happen because I so relate to them adding on these additional feelings. And like I love the language it gives my child to express that.
Yeah. We'll link the feelings wheel in the show notes.
It's one other thing before I forget, because I just want to give a huge shout out. I don't know if I ever talked to you about Bernadette Pleasant. She's with
No, I don't think so.
Runs something called the Emotional Institute, speaking of emotions. And she's sort of a grief coach as well, but she's all about somatic experiencing of emotions. And it was one of the most profound experiences I ever had. I went to Dr. Valerie Rain, who wrote Patriarchy Stress Disorder. So PSD, kind of like PTSD. And she's a white woman and there's ways that it falls short. It was really... It's a great book. I do recommend it because it helps especially if you're very early in your journey of like understanding patriarchy and especially as a white woman, I would say, since it's centered in that way. But it's really good in understanding systems and how so much of what we feel isn't us, it's what's happening to us, right? So it was really healing in that. But she does these free weekends, I think once a quarter or something. And it's a sales pitch. It's really interesting for business on the business front of what she does. It's like a 2-night 3-day sort of retreat online. And the first time I did it, it's free, but you'll hear her sales pitch trying to get you to come in. But honestly, I still think what she does is so worth the sales pitch. Just go into it knowing sales pitch. She gives so much, and the people in the room are all there with the same heart and the same intent for trying to unlearn and do better and have healing. And so it was a beautiful experience. I got a hotel. It was what started my journey of getting to where I am now.
Doing the hotel.
Yeah, hotel retreats. Because I was like, if I'm going to do this, I can't do this at home. So I went to the hotel. It was such a gift to myself. I highly recommend if you ever decide to do her thing, go get a hotel, go do it on your own. But she had Bernadette come in. And that was my first experience with Bernadette. And she comes in to help you process feelings, to learn how to express feelings, to be with our feelings embodied. And this was in my journey of like, what the fuck does it even mean to be embodied? What the hell does it, like, I don't even understand how to be with feelings or how to feel feelings or any, like, it was just so foreign to me because I have always been so in my head. And she uses dance and movement, because you were talking about dance. Does dance and movement, and she has you. And so it's really nice to be in a room alone in a hotel room. Don't look at yourself. Like just has you move through. Okay, what does happiness feel like? Like, how does it feel? And start moving and expressing that. And then and I mean, I found myself, we were going through grief was one of them, sadness. And like, I found myself like curling walls. And like, I just had never been with my body and emotions in that way. And it was fucking beautiful. She has this wonderful spirit about her and the way she does this. So then later, when I was running my group coaching program, I paid her to come in and do that with my community, and they loved it. So I highly recommend. I think she may do some free or low cost online sort of sessions as well, group kind of things. So I would check her out. I'll link to her Instagram. It's Bernadette _Pleasant. And she's also, like I said, the Emotional Institute. I think she's in New York. Anyway, she was amazing. So highly, you might like, as you're going through some of this, if you can find something that she does for free, I can't recommend her enough. It's just really, really so helpful when you're trying to understand, like, what the fuck do you mean be in my body? Like, starts to help you understand what that looks like, to be with your feelings in that embodied way, not just thinking I'm angry, but like feeling
it. Yeah.
It was really healing.
Yeah. I'll have to check it out.
I think you'd love her.
So what do we do from here?
I don't know. Like, I'm in the place now where it's like, okay, the reintegration part of like, so you go through a loss, especially when we're talking about like a death or something, or I mean, even a divorce, but that can be, although death can be long too. I mean, my father-in-law has been effectively dying for over a year now. So in that same, there's this, like with Luna, it's been this long. Luna went to you guys took her to put her down almost a year ago, and she
and she
and like back, we've been through the same thing where my father-in-law had to have lung removed. He had to go through chemo and radiation. Every time along the way, we've been sort of like, you're bracing, and then you're like, oh, there's this like, okay. So that's where you start to get into that belief of like, they're never gonna go, right? Even though, so it's interesting because people will be like, oh, well, you've been preparing, and it's like, in some way, yeah, but in some ways it actually does the opposite, where you start to think, well, like, this won't ever really happen.
Yeah.
So, but this reintegration period of like, you get through the initial parts of all the things you're supposed to do. You put the dog down, you feel sad about it for a few days, you like get the funeral. And then like, and now with, we had the burial, the funeral, the burial, the visitation, the family moment. And now it's like, today's sort of the first day of like, okay, now you have to get on with your life without them there. Right.
Yeah.
And obviously for me, it's so different than with my husband. He's going to have a very different experiences. Clearly it's his dad, and even my son, it's his grandpa. Like for me, it was my father-in-law, but anyway, it's just like that. Yeah. I guess you're supposed to go back to normal, but it's not, it's a new normal. I mean, I remember when my brother died, it was much harder. It's probably like where my husband's going to be with his dad, which is this feeling of like, you look around, you think everybody's just going on. Don't they know the world just radically changed? Right? Like for you with Luna, I was like, the world just radically shifted. Our bed is empty. Like, this little dog that like, we have to like, whatever the loss is for you, your world has radically shifted. For everyone else,
but the rest of the world,
yesterday is just like it was yesterday, right? And that's such a hard thing where you just, and because that can bring up the anger, like, fuck you, why don't you know that the world is just radically shifted? The resentment and all these feelings that come up. And I'm like, you just have to slowly start trying to get back at it. Like, I feel so fucking out of it. Like, it's been a week since I've really done any work. I've been, checking emails and doing the best sort of things I can do. But like, I'm feeling this, like, I don't even know where to dig in. Like, I feel like it's become so overwhelming after a time where you're just like, then you almost don't want to start because it feels too big to start. And then you're just like, and then that just keeps delaying the problem. So that's where I'm at right now, is just like, how do I sort of hit restart?
Yeah.
In this new version of what of life is like.
Yeah.
Hard. It's really hard. I don't have Is that where you're feeling too?
A little bit. Yeah. Just like, I think I feel like I've had a little bit more time than you have, right? Because you just had the funeral yesterday and all that. I have therapy this week, so that's a good thing.
That is a good thing. Yeah. I'm trying really hard because my role through most of this has been more of carrying emotional weight for others, or I don't want to say that because I can't, but trying to help others to be there so that they have space to carry their own emotional weight, to be with emotionally. That maybe feels the right way to say it. Like I'm just trying to be there so that I can remove as much of the load from others so they have space that they need, my husband and my son. And trying really, really hard to not be in let me fix this for you space, which is hard. That's hard. You just don't want to see the ones that you love the most in the world.
Yeah.
But we have just having to keep going to that place. Like, that's right. No, you have to, like, I can't take it from you. I can't fix it. I can't change. What is I need to just be there to help you have that space. And then that creates this emotional load that I knew, like, intellectually I knew, but like, I think I just in the last, like, again, the burial yesterday, I mean, honestly, we went back to the family thing. I fell asleep. I went and I fell asleep, and I was just, and then I got a migraine last night, and I was like, oh, my body is telling me like, you've been carrying a heavy load here.
Yeah.
And not wanting to burden, obviously I don't want to burden my husband with my load because he's got a bigger load. But like that realization of that's what the caretaking part of. And I think for so many women, this would be where Nikki would be great too, where you can, I think they can understand that. Of, the weight we carry. And by the way, like this is this moment, but we do this all the time.
All the time.
We're carrying that weight that we don't see, the weight of the care the work we're doing for everyone around us to make their lives
easier
and better to navigate all that. We're doing that all the time. And that weight is always there. And I think, again, kind of like what we're going through, I think collectively, where so many people are burning out right now because they had already been carrying so much weight. And then this one added weight of the bullshit world we're living in at the moment politically broke them. And that's kind of how I've been feeling, I think, in the last day of like, oh shit, all that weight I've been carrying, I didn't have space for this one additional weight.
Yeah.
And that's why it's feeling like it's breaking me, which is that real, like a great reminder that we have to stop carrying so much weight. That's not ours to carry. And as women, we do.
Yeah. You got to leave some space for yourself.
Which is hard to do. Which, by the way, I posted this morning on Threads. I've already deleted it because I can't fucking deal with people. And my wording, I realize, I think part of it is I don't like, there's that defensive-ness of like, if you knew me, you know what I meant. But you don't know me because fucking social media. Of course, you don't really know me. But I posted, like, I said, I hate when women make parenting their only identity. What I really mean is I hate that we live in a world that makes women believe that parenting needs to be their only identity. But I did repost it with that reframing because get all these people like, women shouldn't attack women. And I'm like,
oh, God.
This is a statement about like the world that we live in that we make like our sacrifice our identity. Right?
Yeah.
And that's yucky. And it's not I understand why we do it. It's because we don't have the support structures in place for us to be able to have more space on our shoulders. I just had a client do an activity too, where I actually had her draw her head and shoulders and write all the weight she's carrying on her shoulders. And it was really, for coaches listening, it was a great exercise for her because she was like, wow, like when I see it this way of all these things like sitting on my shoulders.
Yeah.
It's like, it is too much. And I'm like, yeah, there it is. Like sometimes we need that visualization.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so funny. I did a visualization exercise with a client about the weight on the shoulders.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. And
well, it's because we're good coaches, Taina.
We imagined it as like a ball of yarn, like different colored yarns. Right. And and if you just like pull one thread of something that doesn't need to be on your shoulders, the rest of it will easily start to come out on its own.
But there's part that it also makes me think, though, the fear inside of that, which is like if I pull the one string and I let that thing go,
everything will fall apart.
Yeah. And what about the string? What about those yarns that I do want there? Right. And that gets scary. And so having to like unpack all of that. Yeah. That's good stuff. So if you are in for great coaching stuff, by the way, our sales pitch, speaking up, join us in the coaches circle. It's like, I've been a little absent in the last 2 weeks as we've been navigating a lot of this stuff. I think, the last few months, I think really we've been navigating a lot of this stuff that's been going on and probably will be a little longer. And thank you to Taina very much for helping to carry that load. Speaking of loads on your shoulders, but especially as you're navigating your own grief with Luna. But yeah, that's a great space that we're really excited about and being able to talk about coaching techniques and practices support each other of like this kind of shit of like, showing up for clients when your own world feels so heavy. And then also the business of coaching of like, how the fuck do I get more clients in the door? Or how do I get people to understand that it's okay to invest in themselves in this way?
Yeah. Or what's the best CRM to use? Like, what are the pros and cons?
Right. So if you are a coach listening to us, we'd love to have you join us, and all that's in the show notes as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And just remember, grief is always in the room. So don't deny yourself the opportunity to experience it.
And don't gaslight yourself into trying to convince yourself it's not there. Because isn't that right? We try to break. That's what we do with anger. We put it behind this door. We're like, oh, if I just shove it in the closet, it's not in the room.
It's not there. Yeah.
It's there.
If I don't look it in the eye, it's not real.
Right? So don't gaslight ourselves. We have enough gaslighting happening to us from everyone else. I think if we could learn to stop gaslighting ourselves, that would be huge. Because I think part of the reason we let other people gaslight us is because we're still doing it to ourselves.
Yeah.
I love the grief is always in the room, which is why I hope even if this is heavy, that you've gotten something out of listening. Your own grief, whatever it is in your room right now too.
Yeah.
So
treat it like a friend.
Which is hard. What is going on with that computer? In case people are hearing it, it's just it's in there by telling me, why do I keep hearing your Apple go bing?
It's my very old laptop that keeps like...
Is that its last gasps?
Yeah, kind of. It keeps like dying and then it's plugged in. So it keeps like losing battery, but then like recharging and like kind of restarting.
I mean, it's like, that sounds like it's saying, I want to
help.
Let me die with dignity, Taina. Like, please.
Just put me out.
Yeah. And I mean, if it's not, because it's done that a lot in just like 45 minutes, I've heard it at least probably a half dozen times. That doesn't feel right. That feels like it's time to say goodbye.
Yeah.
Maybe it's too much because you've already had too many goodbyes.
Yeah.
But bye, old Mac.
At some point, I'll get a new laptop.
It's just so damn, and if you're a Mac user, so fucking expensive.
Yeah.
It's so hard to change ecosystems. Like I don't think I could ever leave the Mac ecosystem. And I feel like Apple knows that. They get you by the girlies in the most disgusting way of saying it.
They do last longer than other
I think
brands.
so too. I mean, I had one that was like 11 years old. It did finally die, but I mean, I think that's a long time. I feel
that's a long time for a laptop. Yeah.
Don't you feel like the little disposable almost ones they make now, like they're cheap. Yeah. But then they die every other year and you're getting a new laptop every other year. Anyway. Okay. We have to even grieve our Macs. Y'all.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you. I knew like I was coming in very and still feeling scattered, but it does help to start just like having these kinds of conversations.
Yeah.
Getting back to like just I need routine.
Yeah.
ADHD, I think it is. But like I was telling my husband last night, I'm like, I just need routine. And when I get off my routine, I just feel like I am like
floundering.
Yeah. And I feel like other people, they kind of thrive on that, but I'm not that person. I need routine. So thank you for doing this today because it's starting to feel like I'm getting back into routine.
Good. I'm glad.
All right.
Glad. You too.
Thanks for listening to Messy Liberation.
Will you please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen?
I know people say that all the time. And if you're like me, often you just go on to the next podcast. But truly, taking that moment to do that will really help us reach a wider audience.
Thank you so much for your support and for listening today.
Until next time.